Let me show you a quick and easy way to create these glass ribbon animations in Blender. So first we're going to open up a new file, delete the default cube by left clicking on it and hitting X on your keyboard, click the delete option to remove the cube, and then we're going to go into top view by clicking on the Z button right here, and we're going to add a new object. Click Shift A on your keyboard to bring the add object menu, go to curve and click on the Bezier option. Now we're going to manipulate this curve, so hit tab to go into edit mode. I'm going to subdivide it once by selecting both vertices, right clicking to bring out these options and clicking the subdivide button. Now you can select the new vertex and move it around by using G on your keyboard. You can even scale and rotate this vertex point using S and R on your keyboard to change the look of your curve. You can even select each of these Bezier handles individually for better control. Now I'm going to extend the curve even more, so I'll select the vertex at the end and hit E on the keyboard to extrude it. I'm going to do this a few more times till I get a curve that I'm happy with. Now I'm going to exit edit mode by clicking tab on my keyboard. Select the curve and rotate it on the x-axis by 90 degrees by clicking RX90 on your keyboard. Now I'm going to see through our default camera by clicking on this button. I like to lock the camera and pan around the scene to get a composition that I'm happy with. I want my curve to start outside the camera, so I'm going to extend the curve to the other side as well. To do this, I'm going to first click on the -Y button here to go into orthographic mode, and then I'll enter edit mode again by clicking tab on my keyboard. Then I'll extrude this point just like we did before. Once I'm happy with the curve, we're gonna create a ribbon out of it. To do that, we'll go into the data settings by clicking on this green curve button. Open the geometry tab and increase the extrude till your curve is as wide as you want it. Scroll down till you find the bevel option and increase the depth to give it a rounded shape. Make sure to click on the fill cap button as well, or else your object will be hollow from the inside. To make the shape smoother, I'm going to go into the modifiers tab and add a subdivision surface modifier. Then I'll right click on my object and select shade smooth to give it a better look. If you want to give your curve more dimension, you can tab into edit mode again and rotate the individual points so they look better in the 3D space. Now that we're done modeling our curve, I'm gonna add a background to our scene, so click Shift A on your keyboard to add a plane and scale it up to the point that it covers the entire scene through the camera. We also need to add lights to our scene, so I'm gonna delete the sun that was preloaded onto our scene, then click Shift A to go to light and add an area light. You can change the light settings by clicking on this button. Go to render mode so you can see the lighting properly. I'm gonna keep the power of this at 250 watts, then I'll duplicate this light by clicking Shift D on my keyboard, and before clicking anywhere else, I'll click Y on my keyboard to position the light in front of my ribbon. I'll reduce the power of this light to 50 watts. Adding a secondary light will brighten up some of the shadows that we have on the ribbon. Now we'll go into the shading tab and switch the shader type from object to world. Drag this yellow dot of the color input to the left and type in environment texture to connect it to the background. Click open and select the HDRI from your computer. You can download free ones from the internet. Adding these will give better reflections on your glass material. I'm gonna keep the strength low for now, but I'm probably going to change it later. Now we're gonna work on the materials for our objects. First I'm gonna click on the plane and press the plus icon to add a new material. I'm not gonna change anything right now because I want to keep the background simple. So I'll just rename the material to plane so I can identify it easily. Now I'm gonna select the ribbon, add a new material and name it glass. I'll decrease the roughness to 0 and transmission weight to 1. This will give me a glossy and transparent material. Click Shift A to add a mix shader and place it between these two nodes. Now add a glass bsdf and connect it to the second mix shader input. To create a realistic glass material, we're gonna add a light path node and connect the transmission depth to the factor. This will divide both the shader setups connected to the mix shader node onto the glass ribbon according to the depth of the light ray passing through the material. Before we go any further, let's change the render engine from eevee to cycles. If you have a GPU, use that for faster rendering. I'm also gonna turn on denoise. In the scene settings under format, I'm gonna check these two options so that anything that doesn't fit the camera doesn't have to be rendered. Now let's go back to our glass material and connect a color ramp to the base color. I'm gonna add 4 stops by clicking on this plus icon, then distribute them evenly by clicking on this down arrow and selecting this option. Switch the gradient type from linear to constant and change the colors of the stops using the RGB sliders. For the first stop, the color will be completely red, and for the next one it's going to be a mix of red and green to form yellow. Then it will be green alone, and we're going to use the same pattern till we get all of these colors. And I'm going to leave the last stop completely black. Now I'm going to add a layer weight and white noise texture node and connect them to the color ramp like this. The layer weight should have the facing output connected to the vector input, and this value should be connected to the factor input. I'm also going to connect the value of the white noise texture node to a map range node and connect the result of the map range to the IOR of the principal BSDF. Now when we adjust the 2 min and 2 max settings, we can get some interesting glass dispersion on our glass. The closer these values are to 1.5, the more realistic the material will look, but you don't have to keep it completely realistic. I created these renders using this material shader, and I followed this Japanese tutorial to achieve this effect. Last I checked, it didn't have English subtitles, but you can still check out the video and understand a lot of what's going on just by watching it. I'll link it down below if you're interested. This shader is great on its own, but I want to make it a little more colorful, so we're gonna modify the shader a little bit. So I'll go to the glass PDF right here and add a color ramp and gradient texture to it. Then you can add a few color stops to the color ramp and give them different colors to achieve different effects. You might notice that our material looks really dark, so I'm gonna lighten it up by adding a mixed color node here, changing the blending mode to overlay and keeping the second color at white. The more you increase the factor, the lighter the color will become. The lighting also looks really dark, so I'm gonna go into my world settings and change the strength of my HDRI to 1. The reflections still look dark to me, so I'm gonna adjust this by adding a plane using Shift A. I'm gonna scale it up, rotate it on the x-axis by 90 degrees by clicking RX90 and bring it to the front of the object. Now I've given this plane a new material, and under emission I've given it a blue color and increased the strength to above 30, and you can see the difference in the reflections with and without the plane here. Now we're gonna animate the ribbon, so go to your curve data by clicking this button, and under bevel you will find the start and end mapping settings. We're gonna animate this to make our curve appear and disappear. Make sure you open up your timeline panel from the bottom, and then on the first frame we're gonna set the start and end to 0 and add a keyframe to the end option by clicking on this diamond button. Now go further in your timeline. I'm at frame 60 and increase the end to 1 and add a keyframe. Now go even further in your timeline. I'm at frame 120 and add a keyframe to factor start and set it to 1. Now I'll go all the way back to frame 1, add a keyframe to factor start at 0, go to frame 40 and add another keyframe with factor start at 0. So basically the end is animated from 0 to 1 from frames 1 to 60, and the start is animated from a value of 0 to 1 from frames 40 to 120. So both the animations will occur simultaneously for a short period of time. You can adjust these keyframes around to change the speed of your animation. Now I'm going to change the output settings for the final animation. So I'm setting the render animation from frame 18 to 116. So I'm only rendering the section where the glass ribbon is in frame. Then I'm going to select the file location where I want to save my animation. I'm going to put it in a new folder. I'm saving my renders in a PNG format with color depth 16 and compression 0 for best quality. I'm also going to change the pixel density to 150 and increasing my dimensions a little bit by multiplying both the dimensions by 1.1. You don't have to change any of these settings if your computer is slower, because all of this might increase the amount of time it will take to render the animation. I'm also using 1024 samples for the render. I don't know if you need that many. You can reduce yours and test out the quality by yourself, but I don't really mind this number. And once you're done, go to render, click render animation, and it will save your frames as PNGs, which you can load into any video editing software as an image sequence and export it as a video. And that's how you create these glass ribbon animations. Alright, that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the tutorial, and I'll be uploading more videos soon. Bye!